Hello, thank you for attending the Harrington Group International webinar on ppapforwind.com. It's a new cloud app just released. We're excited to talk to you about it. I'm going to spend a little time sharing some lessons learned over the last few years when I was working with suppliers that have been using spreadsheets for PPAP document authoring. And what I mean by that is very specifically process flows, PFEMA, control plans, how to tie all those together, gauge studies. And then during the demo, I'm going to show you what they designed. We're also going to talk a little bit about APQP versus PPAP and the challenges of not distinguishing between those two. We have a great mix of companies today. Some of the big OEMs are joining us, some of their suppliers, and a lot of the small suppliers. And different groups have different needs, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Because of the group, the phone's muted, but we'd love to take questions at the end, so please type them into the question block. You can download a copy of the presentation during the event. If you have any problems with that, just let me know or send me an email, and I'll shoot them out to you. There's also a PPAP for Wind flyer that talks about the offering and the pricing. And then probably very important is an example of PPAP's requirement document. The intended audience today is you kind of already know about PPAP, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining it. Some of you I've actually talked to before this event, and just trying to understand the level of effort and the challenges with it. PPAP's already shown up in purchase orders. This is a must-do process, so you don't get to vote. And we're going to talk about common issues and challenges that you're facing, why you're facing them, and some ideas how to solve them. Wind Energy is very lucky to have a great professional organization, APQP for Wind. It's a nonprofit founded by the world-leading wind turbine manufacturers and suppliers. If you haven't checked them out, go to apqp4wind.org. They have a lot of good information. A lot of smart, passionate people that are trying to continuously improve the wind energy supply chain. And that involves a lot of things. Today, we're really just going to focus on the PPAP start of it. And the challenges we have is if you've been involved in PPAP and other industries, we do all this work, we put all these things together, and is it working? Is it helping? If we're trying to reduce costs and we spend all this time and money developing it and it's never used, it increases costs and does not support improvement. Software tools, and when I talk about software tools, I don't mean spreadsheets. A lot of executives think that spreadsheet is digitization, spreadsheet is a software tool. Well, hold on, I guess I could call it a software tool, but it's not the kind of tool that I think we need. So why bother? If you can get out of spreadsheets, you can build a tremendous knowledge base from all the PPAP information that's put in a database now and not spreadsheets. You can reduce the time to create the documents by 60%. So reporting submission is almost trivial now. You don't have to go searching for files on a K drive or that were uploaded in a PLM app somewhere. But most importantly, drive PPAP effectiveness. And why I say that is, again, if we're doing all this work, but we're not seeing continuous improvement, we might be doing it wrong. How do you do that? One of the biggest trends right now is relying on product and process families where you can group together your information and then reuse it. It's been very helpful. So, the wind energy supply chain, the turbine OEMs are struggling to remain competitive. It's getting a lot of support, a lot of interest, but it's all about continuous improvement that drives cost reduction. But as we flow down the supply chain from the OEMs down to the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, down to the smaller ones, the PPAP implementation process gets a little confusing. So, do I do it on the part? Do I do it on the subsystem, the system, the assemblies? So, what's a better way to deploy wind energy? Well, you may have already received a letter like this that the suppliers are working with. a lot of companies. And let's start with the subject of APQP and PPAP. It's new and confusing. First, I recommend that we split discussions between APQP and PPAP into two subjects. They're related but different. APQP is the new product design, new product introduction, design themas. It starts with the design team and maybe with a supplier if you have design authority. But PPAP is where we're trying to say we know we have a process, we know what the risks are, we control the risk, and we can produce continuously high quality parts for you. And the reason I think the split's important is part suppliers, if they're said we got to do APQP, they'll Google it and they look at it and go, what? And I talk to suppliers all the time. I mean, I had one last week say I'd be ecstatic if the wind energy OEMs would provide a single PPAP tool. And again, these are on PO clauses. These are just examples from some of the OEMs. They're in the supplier quality manual. It's again, if you're wrestling with why do we have to do it? Well, first of all, you have to, but probably most importantly, at the end of this event, you'll understand the benefits of it that you can explain both internally in your company and with your suppliers. So, is this a big deal? Will this help continuous improvement? The current tool in the industry is the APQP for Win workbook. And that's good. It's a good start. But we can do better. As a minimum, simple things like controlling the links between a process flow, a PFM, and a control plan. I was at a quality auditor conference last week, and I'm having lunch with the auditors talking about this a little bit. And the auditor said, "Oh, by sure, we go to this area first. We pick out the three. They're almost always broken, and that's what they look at." I mean, I was surprised in the automotive industry, who had started this whole effort very aggressively decades ago. They had last year 400 major audit findings and 6,000 minor audit findings on control plans. And I just looked at that. I go, that doesn't seem right. How could we do it? And the volunteers that I was working with said, "Oh, it's easy. I put something in the control plan. I didn't update the process flow or any combination of that." So there's a better mousetrap, and some simple things like making sure we got valid dates, spell checking, and more, like that product and process capability. Now, some of the people in the wind energy supply chain might slightly modify the standard industry form, and that's okay. If they change, we don't call it operation, we call it process. It's not a big deal, unless you forget to use their form, or worse yet, use another customer's form and send it to them. That's where it gets, from an administrative standpoint, a little messy. Another tool published is the gauge analysis tool for those R&R studies. What the volunteers told me that designed the app we're going to demo was, it would really be nice to have easily accessible library of studies that can be reused for customer-specific part number and PPAP submissions. It would be, just part of a database that can give me due dates and action items across all customers. So the idea of having these, again, kind of sort of put on a K drive or in a document management tool, all these non-integrated files, it just gets cumbersome. I'm not anti-spreadsheet. It's a useful tool, but it is a risk. If you Google errors in spreadsheets, you're going to get something like this. In the automotive industry, Ford and GM has told their suppliers they will no longer accept these documents that are created in spreadsheets. They require FMEA software to ensure linkage that we just discussed. And they're really promoting this product process families. So, again, we got to fix those broken links, but there's other problems. The volunteers told me I sorted it wrong and I messed it up. I cut and pasted it and this messed up. I merged it and then I sorted it and then I unmerged it. these are just the things that frustrate manufacturing engineers, quality engineers doing this kind of work, because you spend all this time on it and then you click on something wrong and it's almost start over. And there's other ones that have said, well, we have supplier portals and project management software. We've already automated PPAP. But uploading spreadsheet files, they say, well, it's better than nothing. And my response is, no, it's not. There have been lawsuits that have been lost and won looking at this PPAP information that was submitted. Again, you can Google it. There's examples of customers that have problems in the shop. They looked at the PPAP submission. They went out and looked at the supplier. The supplier had changed something. They didn't resubmit. So it's more than just a clerical work that you use to send out to your company. There are 3 distinct levels of PPAP engagement that I also think it's very important to understand, especially when you're looking at softwares and tools and trying to decide what you're going to use. There's an oversight level that are mostly executives that are looking for dashboards, insights, analytics, things that can make life, things that can make it easier for them to have conversations about, are we getting the continuous improvement we expect? Then there's a project management layer. And a lot of people think that PPAP is just project management, but it's not. And then there's these people that are doing documents where they create the knowledge and they need to author them and retrieve them. So the problem is in oversight and project management, they think PPAP digitization is just pushing spreadsheets into a project management tool or supplier portal. And so the focus is on project management, not document authoring. That's being done in spreadsheets. If you miss a project deadline, that's a bummer. Nobody likes to miss them. Sorry, we'll get it to you. But when you mess up in the process flow, PFEMA control plan, gauge studies, that costs money. Scrap, rework, repair, all that is going on. So the purpose of this slide is to say we have to kind of invert this. 80% of the work should be on document authoring, which is going to get us the continuous improvement that the wind energy wants. And then project management should almost be trivial. I saw this sign in an airport, and it made me think of this presentation. It said, build features, sales things customers need, and crossed out sales things. And what I thought was buy software, executive things users need. Well, we need to buy software the users need. And the only way to do that is to talk to your people and or suppliers, figure out how the process is working, and then look at it. So this group I worked with, they're intriguing. Every meeting, they would tell me if it's too complicated, I'm going back to spreadsheets. So what would better than spreadsheets but not too complex look like? Now remember, this is focusing on document authoring, that part of the pyramid where 80% of the effort should be. First of all, keep it simple. Use it as a better document authoring tool. This is about execution, not project management, not just oversight. For part information, if possible, connect it to an ERP or PLM, or at least get a spreadsheet you can upload into the tool. You're going to find this is a lot easier and more consistent than getting spreadsheets. I didn't have the right rev. I typed the part number wrong. All those issues we need to get rid of. For operations, I've had some people say, why can't I just connect to the router? That's our process flow. And kind of, sort of, why was the router created? That wasn't created so we could figure out how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, what parts were needed, mostly accounting and inventory issues. But the PPAP subject is, yes, how we're going to make it, for sure, like a router. What are the risks, which really isn't in the router, and then the control plan. How am I going to inspect and control these? And there is some project capability in the software I'm going to show you, but there's a lot of flexibility because the smaller the company, the less project management they need. So what does it look like? The demo we're going to get to is I had one person tell me this is a PPAP communication platform. And it's like, wow. You mean helping communicate internally, communicate with your suppliers, collaborate better, get better engagement? Those are all the things we want, but you can't do it when people are doing the best they can with standalone spreadsheets. This one, I want to talk about this just for a little bit because you can set up the tool we're going to demo. You don't have to. I mean, you can start just typing stuff in it, but it's recommended. So you don't have to start up anything to get started. But if you do spend some time thinking about what a better process would look like, it will pay off. For example, when I do private demos for companies, I try to get them to send me an existing spreadsheet, and I take a look at the contents. And, you know, sometimes people feel obligated to say the same thing in different ways. It's rusty, it's corrosion, there's rust on the part. Because, you know, I'm an engineer, I got to come up with intelligent things to say. But the reality is, saying the same thing different ways makes the document harder to understand. And then there's another group that feels obligated to provide extreme detail. I mean, FMEAs with rows and rows and rows and rows, and they put in the ID's too small, the IT's too big, the ID's out of round. And, you know, of course, there's a bunch of different things. You can say the ID's rusty. I mean, the point is, when the FMEA repeats the same information for all of these IDs, big, small, oversized, out of round, and after it's all the same, the document almost becomes irritating. And you just say the ID's out of spec would be a great start. Now, again, you don't have to present these files, you know, potential failure modes, potential effects of failure, sample sizes, frequency. You can build them on the fly, but if you take a look at them first, it's better. And importing is easy. You're going to see when we go into the demo, you're going to see this up arrow icon on all the screens. It's just an easy way to bring files in so you don't have to type it all. So let's take a look at the app. This is mimicking the diagram we showed. So we got a part file, we got project files, we got gauge studies, and one other thing I forgot to mention, it also comes in English, Spanish, and Chinese. I think we have some group from overseas today. So what does this look like? Well, let's just walk through it. I get a purchase order, PPAP's required. The part number is let's do wind power 555. This is a wind power example. Location is used in the app. If you have several locations in your facility, it controls who can see what and when. If you're a corporate quality director, you'd want to see all of them, or if it's shared across all of them. If it's just in one facility, you can pick that as well. What's the status of the part, and what's the revision? Now, that's it. That's all you have to enter. However, if you want to get a little more creative, you can do some more things. You can say, these are the supplier that I'm getting it from. You can say these, and it may be multiple customers. I'm sending this out to Siemens, Vestas, and Goldwyn. The part type. Again, when you start doing these, it all gets into the idea of reporting analytics. So the more you put in here is kind of the better. So with that basic information, here's kind of what you got to do. We're going to put in product characteristics. I'm going to flip over the screen for that. Hopefully you have some kind of bubbling app or something that can get those out for you. That helps a lot. You can also just type them in. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the up arrow. I'm going to copy and paste that information. And we've loaded the product characteristics. You can do the same thing with process characteristics. Same cut and, or you can just click the file too if you want. And then last but not least, the operations. Now, again, you don't even have to do this, but you're going to see when we start going into document authoring that it just makes it easier and to build and edit it. So, okay, we know that we got the part number. We know where we're going. We now want to go ahead and issue a project against it. So I'm going to add a project. This will be the APQP for wind, AP, let's do it this way, PPAP for wind demo. Again, what locations does this impact? We're going to stick with the Cleveland facility. What type of project it is, and just so you know, this can do APQP project management as well. We've had people using it for environmental safety issues, but we're just going to stick with PPAP for now. Now it wants to know what part number. So here's the part we just imported. What revision? Now, this is an important part because the volunteers, one of them looked at me and said, John, I've got the same part number going to different customers at different revision levels. I need to have management by part number and rev level. The characteristics change. There's things going on. So it's important to do that. And if this is a submission to the customer, based on the customers that you said it's going to, I can then go ahead and assign it to a customer. So all we did was put together the basic project. Now, as far as the task on it, you have the ability to put together user-defined templates on how you're going to do it, how you're going to put it together, and how it's going to work for you. We'll come back to that in a bit. So here's the forms. Now, it does come with the AIG forms that are referenced in the APQP for Wind manual. It has both the 4th edition and the new AIG VDA forms. You can use any ones you want. I'm going to go ahead and start with the 4th edition. Hopefully you're familiar with this. So let's go ahead and do a process flow. And a lot of times I do that. I've had people say, well, John, we don't do the process flow. We start with the PFEMA. All right, start with the PFEMA. What I'm trying to emphasize, you can start anywhere in here. You can start in the control plan, start wherever you want. So let's go ahead and start here. So we're going to add a couple steps. I'll just put a couple of these in. And now it's asking what's the process step. Now, these are the ones I just imported. So do you have to? No, you don't have to. You can just type them in here. But again, for consistency, usability, this just helps a lot. And you just type as well. You don't have to click. So real quick on this window, you're going to see it a couple of times. Another challenge with these systems is the database will track every change to every record to every field, who did it, date and timestamp. And we want a rev control system. We want to be able to see what people change, but that was way too much detail. So what the volunteers told me is, hey, if we're just getting together, I mean, we just got this part where the MEs and QEs, maybe a supplier, we're just trying to go through it. We're just updating it and putting it together. As soon as we're ready to publish, we can hit the publish button. We'll come back to that. Now, here's the important thing. This is the linkage that the auditors were looking for. So I put them in the PFEMA, but they show up in the process flow. And they show up in the control plan. Now, interesting, as soon as, again, the volunteers have been using spreadsheets, one guy's been using them for almost 30 years to do this work. As soon as it clicked to him that this is not 3 different spreadsheets or even 3 tabs in one spreadsheet, it's a database, he goes, can I have this view? And this view is intended to let you go across the entire app, across all the forms, all the information at one place. So this is across all of them. And again, just to show you some other things in here, you don't have to enter these, but if I did put in, for example, a library that your teams agreed to for, let's go over to for potential effects of failure, you'll get a lot better consistency on it. And again, they said this type this. People get frustrated when it's the same thing worded differently. And like you would on all the web apps, I don't remember what it is, but it's an operator issue. So if I type operator, it'll filter on those. Again, just a couple examples of that to bring it together. So as soon as they saw that, they said, well, wait a minute, that's too big. In Excel, I can pin columns. So I can scroll back and forth and not lose anything. So that was important. They said, you know what, I can also hide columns. I'm not working on this information right now. I just don't want to see it. So what you're going to see is in the app, the volunteers put in everything they liked about Excel and solved with the database everything they didn't like about it. So if we go any further, let's go back to the PFEMA. Another challenge they had is the PFEMA, the right side of the form, where you're supposed to do continuous improvement, which is what we're trying to do with APQP for Win to reduce these costs. They said either get rid of the right side of the form or give me some way to manage it. So they wanted the ability to go in and say research machine vision systems to improve detection. And we're going to, hey, look at that, spell checker. And it's funny because somebody said, well, spreadsheets have spell checkers. Yeah, as long as you remember to use them. Who's responsible for it, what the target date is, and let's do it one more. So we're going to do this to make severity less. And we'll assign it to the same person with the due date. So what this means now, by the way, back to this thing real quick. If you hit mark as release, it then takes all the information, creates a snapshot of it, and stores it in the file. So you can always go back and see what was done at what time by who at a higher level. So we just brought the right side of the PFEMA to life. And again, the idea of whether they're assigned to you, if they're assigned to you, just show me yours. If they're assigned to everybody, let's see those. But this was, again, one of the problems we were trying to solve with the app to be able to make that useful. Now, we have the ability to go through this and see what's going on. One of the other things they said is, I'm doing 30 different PPAPs for 30 different part numbers. I need the ability to have one button to click on and say, show me all the tasks assigned to me in the project plan. Show me all the FME tasks that are assigned to you, and the ability to do things like Excel, sort by date, sort by priority, and all that information. So if we go back to projects into the PPAP for Win demo, You also have the ability to keep track of meetings. Don't have to use it, but I had one customer tell me it's really helped them because all the Zoom meetings with their suppliers globally are recorded, and he has a meeting log of the recording, and it's just a quick way to find who said what and how and what they're doing. You also have the ability to assign team members to it. These team members can be your employees, they can be customer people, they can be suppliers, whatever level of detail you want to. And then also the history tab. And this is the high level of when it was released, when it was created, who changed what, impact on it at a high level. The last component are these gauge studies. And remember, this is where they wanted the ability to have a reusable library. Again, these are all configurable browse windows. You can keep track of whatever code you want, how you want them. So now we can attach these to PPAP submissions to make it easy. The other thing that surprised us as you're going through here, most of the volunteers were using Minitab to do this, which is expensive in itself, especially if you're just using it for the gauge studies. But this is what surprised us. One of the volunteers got a call back and said, John, I just sent out the gauge study report. My supplier quality engineer at the customer called me and said, thank you so much for this new reporting format. You know, in the old version, there were like 28 pages. I had to try to figure out what I was looking for. This gives us exactly what we're looking for. As is it a good study? Is it a bad study? This was a attribute study, same thing with ANOVA reports. So again, just a simplified way to say the gauge system needs improvement, gauge discrimination is low. Again, the heart of what we're trying to do to manage this. Now, all those things I was talking about, again, you don't have to, but these are all administration tables that you can build these files up front. You can put together any detail you want. You can also build the task form templates. So I went ahead and loaded the APQP for WIN, PPAP submission task list. You can have, and this happens sometimes, again, even though the industry put together, there's 18 steps and here's what they are, your customer may add one, change one, move it up and down, reword a little different. It shouldn't matter. Because you can say this is going to Vestas or it's going to Siemens Gamesa, whichever one, and they want the task this way. It's no longer a problem. And you won't use opposite ones. The other thing you can do is customize the forms. So I did go in and kind of good news, the APQP for WIN template didn't change a whole lot. I think they changed, they don't use operation description, it's process description. But I do want to share this one with you. We used it a lot in training, especially when we're getting started with people who haven't done this before. And it lets you do things like, instead of people saying, what's the potential failure mode? You can just say, hey, what if you're making this, what could go wrong? Most people can tell you. Well, what's the potential effect of failure? It's like, what are you talking about? I'm sorry, what could happen? And if it did happen, how bad would it be? Why did it happen? Now, you might not think that's important, but if we go back into the project and go back into the form, what we're going to see here is I'm going to now toggle to the simplified column form and go into the FMEA. And I can tell you, this makes it a lot easier for people to know what's going on. And you can have one tool, one training, one deployment for all your customers. And then if you have a customer who tweaked the form a little bit, I'm going to go in and use the APQP for WIN template now. Yeah, you see they use process step, and they changed a little bit, not a lot. So all we're trying to do is a better mousetrap than spreadsheets, but not a complicated PLM app that is so structured and deployed it's hard to go through. Hopefully this intrigued your interest enough that you'll be interested in getting a detailed demo for your team. And again, when we do specific demos for your team, we use your data. So that's what was announced. That's what's released. But I do want to tell you about where we're headed. Everyone's talking about 4.0 this, 4.0 that. And this is my view of a PPAP software maturity model. 1.0 is, again, I have the automotive manuals up here. We could put APQP for wind up there, but it's spreadsheets. And if you're using spreadsheets, don't feel bad. 80 to 95% of the people trying to do this work are doing it in spreadsheets. So 2.0 is the app I just showed you. Let's get off the spreadsheet into a database. 3.0 is what Harrington is offering and working on to improve it, is, of course, a single sign-on, so your IT department knows that it's all controlled. APIs to bring in customer, supplier, part number tables from your ERP or PLM apps, and then very robust analytics. Now, remember, we can't do any of that until we leave PPAP 1.0 and get to 2.0. When you get to 2.0, all sorts of cool things start happening. And 4.0, I had to come up with a 4.0. Yes, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. It's cool, and there's exciting stuff under the way. So here's the integration challenge. First and foremost, all the logos here are owned by the respective companies and are shown for description of the global wind energy chain. There's no endorsement given or implied by use of any of these logos. But if the game plan is to drive continuous improvement throughout the global supply chain, we got to connect this somehow. Remember that one vendor said, if I could get one tool that I could use for all my customers, I'd be ecstatic. And the good news is, when we talk about this kind of integration, it's not that complicated anymore. Whether we're going to a supplier portal, the QMS software you're using, any of those different tools, the Microsoft Power Platform, Harrington is a Microsoft shop. So the Microsoft Power Platform, the integration tool, it comes with pre-built APIs with software like SAP. It also has workflow automation, a lot of good capability, like flowing down requirements. Here's one. If the PPAP is triggered by a PO and ERP, it would be nice to literally trigger it and say we have to do it. We just issued a purchase order to this vendor. The vendor gets triggered. The event goes into the app. The other thing, and we'll talk about this on the next slide, is connecting it to cost. But remember, analytics are not possible until we get out of the standalone spreadsheet to make it work. So analytics and AI. I heard a presenter say data is the new oil, and it's like, okay, well, but knowledge is the new fuel. And data needs to be put to work. That's what the oversight people, the executives, are looking for. And almost every manufacturing engineer or quality engineer I speak to wish they had. The ability to gain more insights, to make better decisions. Show it to me by customer, show it to me by part, show it to me by supplier, by location. Give me an analysis of causes of failure. Why are we seeing it here and not over here? Oh, look at that improvement action on this particular part, on this line, worked. Is there any other place? There's all sorts of things that your brain can start doing to look at. But probably the most important one that we're excited about is connecting failure costs to find the return on investment. When I say that, there's stories like this. It's like occurrence. You guys only had a low occurrence level. And then all of a sudden you see the failure cost, whether it's one big event or 30 events that cost a little. Wow, that's happening more than we thought. Detection. Our detection's great. Well, then why are we finding it at the customer and not in our shop? So, failure modes. Have we seen this before? It's very exciting once we get out of here. So again, ppapforwin.com is available today. If you'd like to schedule a demo using your data, we'd love to do that. But one of the other attachments that I think is very important is this next slide, an example requirements document. I just this morning talked to somebody that said, well, no, we're looking at other tools. I said, well, of course you should look at other tools. I said, do you have a requirements document? No, we didn't put that together. Now, again, these are manufacturing people. And I said, well, that's interesting. Would you ever go out to talk to people or get bids on making a part and not have a blueprint, just talk to them about an idea and kind of willy-nilly just add things or change things? And, you know, the first conversation you had, you learned 3 things, so you told that to the next vendor. And it's really, really important. So the intended audience of the document is, again, the part manufacturers, your suppliers or your plants, the people doing PPAP. All the things we talked about, process flows, PFEMAs, control plans. It is not intended, and this is, again, the difference between APQP and PPAP. It's not intended to compete or look at PLM apps. They've got a whole nother story about what they do and don't do. And then this last one is probably, some of you may already know this, but, you know, need versus want. A need's required, we have to have it. A want would be nice. Now, the other caution here is the answers vary significantly depending if you're asking the people overseeing it, the people managing it, the project managers, or the people executing it. And the sad part is a lot of these decisions are made by people that aren't doing the work at the detail end. A little bit more about the Harrington Group. Our focus is to deliver substantial improvements with long-term financial results. We try to get you tools that grow as your business grows. So on this particular subject, if you can take a baby step off of spreadsheets and get to this, and it helps, do it. If, you know, don't confuse perfection and improvement. They're different stories. Anyhow, Harrington's been around for decades. 45,000 customers around the world are using the tool. I really appreciate you attending. Let's see if we got any questions. The first one is, our management will not allow cloud apps. Can we install it on site? And the answer is yes. If you need to put it on premise, we can support that as well. Second one, we're using the APQP spreadsheet you showed us. Is that bad? And no, not at all. It's it's much better than trying to do it in Excel, a blank Excel that has nothing in it. So again, baby steps. PPAP 1.0 spreadsheets. PPAP 2.0 is the Harrington PPAP for WinDAP. Can you develop custom APQP PPAP tests? Yes. First of all, you can create as many project types as you want and custom lists for each of them. That was the example about this customer has 18 steps, this customer has 22 steps, this customer has 4. Those are all configurable and usable however you see fit. I'm going to paraphrase this one. It's, can you explain a little bit more how you can operate using a consistent internal form and then switch to a custom template? Yes. In the work, and I've been working on this for very focused, laser focused on this for about the last 5 years. When somebody tweaks a template, very often they're trying to do it to match the vocabulary, which they should do. If they don't call it an operation number, they call it a process number, then use what your employees are used to thinking. What I tried to show you with the simplified form is you can go in and tweak it to match all your customer requirements, and you use that when you go to publish. You can use a common internal process and approach for when you're doing it, and then when it goes to send out the form, and Again, I'll show you all that in a detailed demo. You can send them out to PDFs. You can email all them to do that. But that's how it's worked. Looks like there's one more. We already have a big PLM app, like you mentioned. And they use it for document authoring in here. It's not working. What do we do? Well, first of all, do not in any way approach the PLM app as a bad investment. It's horrible. Anything negative about it. We already did. We spent the money, try to figure out how we can use it. Probably the most important thing that I learned with the volunteers is the first meeting, just chat. Several of them said, look, I've looked at all the tools out there. I've researched all the PLM apps. And every demo, they say, first you start with the DFMEA. And they'd raise their hand and go, we don't do DFMEAs. We don't have design authority. And the demo guy would stop a little bit and he goes, oh, well, just use the DFMEA you got from your customer. And they laugh and go, we don't get DFMEAs from our customer. So part of what you might be experiencing is we, again, have to go out and talk to the people doing the work, define how the process works and doesn't work for them, and then go back to whoever's saying use PLM and say, look, this is what's not working for us. We need a better mousetrap. Oh, one more popped up. We have the same problem being told to use our ERP app. All right, one more story. One of the people on the team was kind of saying, our ERP app already does all that. I said, wow, really? And by the way, this was a VP of quality from a billion-dollar global company. Our ERP does all that. And I just said the same advice I gave to the PLM question. I said, can I talk to the people in your company that are doing this work? And she said, sure, go ahead. Guess what? I talked to the people doing the work, and they said, oh, we do it all in Excel, and then we upload it to the ERP app. Now, the reason that story is important is when I went back to the VP of quality and told them that, the response was, I didn't know that. I thought it was quote unquote done in the ERP app. So a lot of things can be learned by going out and talking to folks. Again, if you want some more information, the email's on the screen. Would love to do a private demo for you. And thank you so much for your time.